What's up guys? So when this video comes out, that means that the nerfs to Darkglare have released for Wild. And what that means is a huge number of decks are now playable that were previously not playable at all. You don't have to be able to clear a crazy board by turn 3 to be able to compete, so it means we're going to have new aggro decks compete, and we're going to have new control decks complete. But these are the 4 decks and 1 extra variant that I think are going to be most effective in the early days when people are trying everything. So if you want some free wins, check out these decks. You've definitely seen some of them before, but I promise you they are going to win games. So the first deck is Malygos Druid, and one thing you'll notice about this deck list is that it doesn't run Poison Seeds. Poison Seeds is basically a necessity against decks like Darkglare, but if it's not around, then Poison Seeds isn't a big deal. What this deck does is it ramps so quickly that it simply doesn't need to clear big minions. By the time big minions come down, it expects to be playing Kaothos, UI, or even a full Malygos combo. And there's a lot of ways you can win that don't even involve playing Malygos. Sometimes you just copy Kun a couple times with Sathravar, you gain 10 armor, you gain 20 armor, and your aggro opponent is basically screwed. Overall, this deck is super strong, and it works in both a combo and an aggro meta, but being able to cut Poison Seeds is a big advantage for the deck, and it's going to do much better because of it. And the second deck is one you've seen featured on my channel a lot, and that is Reno Lock. And the great thing about this deck is that you can tech it for basically any meta, so this one I've changed a little bit for the meta that I expect to see in the coming days. People are going to be playing a lot greedier stuff because they can get away not limiting themselves to a specific set of board clears that could deal with what Darkglare had. Reno Lock is one of those decks that benefits because it can tech against pretty much everything else but those huge boards it just couldn't deal with. So we run a ton of value in here. We run Expired Merchant, Blood Reaver Gul'dan, N'Zoth, so we can grind out even the best of value decks such as Q-Block, but we've also got some very easy wins against combo decks. Say your opponent plays Polkelt, you immediately play Nosferatu, and you might just win the game on the spot. Same with pretty much any Priest opponent can lose to the Finley Wizard combo, and we even run Kobold Sticky Finger to just nullify our Kingsbane Rogue opponents. Overall, this deck has tech for a significant portion of the meta, and you can create a game plan that wins against the rest. The nerfs to Darkglare are absolutely going to open this deck up, but I know what you're saying. You're saying, Jack, I don't really care about winning that much, okay? This is the same deck that I've been playing for a while. I need something spicy. Don't worry, I've got you covered. So this, my friends, is deck 2.5, and you'll notice that it looks very similar except for a few key cards. The first one is Doomsayer. Okay, Doomsayer's pretty standard. The next one is Treachery. Okay, I guess Treachery works with Doomsayer. But the last one is Fel Reaver, and so Fel Reaver with Treachery basically can be used to delete your opponent's entire deck. If you're closing in on fatigue, say your opponent has 6 cards left, maybe they have 9 cards left. You Fel Reaver, you Treachery, you play a couple other cheap things, maybe that you Thorisand, and all of a sudden your opponent has no cards left. Combine that with disruption like Dirty Rat, Nosferatu, and your opponent might just not have a single chance to play anything combo related all game. I've had games where I was able to delete an opponent's Anduin, Spawn of Shadows, Kazakus, Zephyrs, and pretty much everything important. And even though I still had Finley Wizard, the game was already over at that point. So this is a super fun combo. I don't necessarily think it is explicitly better, but it's a lot more fun, and it's much more competitive than you might think. I've been playing it even in this Darkglare meta with some success. And the third deck, you guys have seen this one before. It is Tried and True Quest Mage. So, of course, it's probably no surprise that I'm going to recommend Quest Mage, but it's just gonna be good. Darkglare is a deck that was pushing it out. People are gonna be playing a lot of greedy combo decks, and Quest Mage is the fastest combo deck of all time. Still is, and really it hasn't been touched in the slightest. It just happened to lose to some of the early Scholomance decks. But now the meta is going to shift in its favor, and people are going to forget on day one that this deck still exists, but you aren't. And that's how you're going to get a lot of free wins. If you're familiar with the deck, then you are locked and loaded for these free wins. If not, then check out my guide to Quest Mage video. That will teach you everything you need to know to get started playing this deck, and you will clean up a lot of decks that aren't prepared for you on day one. And the last deck shouldn't come as a surprise because it's been good. Well, it's still good. It's Reno Priest. So Reno Priest runs basically all of the same cards, we've just made a few small changes that make it a little bit more fun and a little bit more appropriate for the meta. So those of you that have been watching my stream will see this next tech, Madame Lazul. This one is hilarious against priests because priests tend to have really good cards in hand. A lot of people say the priest mirror isn't very interesting. I agree, but when you get Lazul, things get interesting. So you can keep Lazul in the mulligan. It's actually very good against priest. And sometimes you Lazul, you get Polkelt, and all of a sudden you turn a terrible handful of useless draw into a hand that's literally going to draw you into everything you need. And another thing you can do is you can seance your Lazul. You can basically view your opponent's entire hand and then just take their best card. It's a great value engine, and honestly, I find that Priest doesn't have any trouble beating aggro these days. You can cut Lazul for aggro tech if you feel like you need it, but I've found it's incredibly effective if you feel like you're facing too much Priest. Another card that may surprise some of you that I'm highlighting at all is Mindrender Elusia. A lot of decks recently have been cutting it, but I'm thinking that day one, you're going to want to put this back in. The reason is, it's actually still pretty good against aggro. If you play it going first on turn 3, you steal your opponent's coin, you play a 1-drop, it's really strong. And your opponent loses a draw, you gain a draw. That's solid if you're not going to die. Sometimes you kill someone, and then at the end, if you can't quite get there, you play Elusia, and then you take their healing. There is a ton of stuff you can do, a lot of creative ways you can use this card, and if you've got the brain big enough to play it, I say play it on day one. All of these deck lists are in my Discord, and you'll definitely catch me streaming a lot of the post-patch meta on my Twitch channel, link in the description, every single night at 12 AM PST. And additionally, if you like these videos, make sure to click that like button because it really does help get this video out to new people. Thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you on ladder.